right, starting the show today with Libs of TikTok, I believe it is.
Hi, this is a little message to the unvaccinated. You are killing everyone. It's your fault. You're being selfish, so get the vaccine because I'm vaccinated. I am vaccinated, okay? And so I'm protected because the vaccine is safe and effective. So if you're around me and you're unvaccinated, then you're putting me well, you're not. Okay. So you're selfish because if I'm protected and you're around me, then I'm fine. But you're me. Sorry. If you're not vaccinated, then you're not. You're racist, is what I'm saying.
Folks, that's the comedian that does a lot of political stuff. That was going around probably a year ago or so. Thought I would start the show with that today because that is, again, it seems like every time we start the show today, this is what we're dealing with. This is the modern left. This is the modern Democrat Party. I'm sorry to say that for those people, who are Democrats, but your team has just gone insane. I don't know what to tell you. And that wasn't that long ago. And, remember the vaccine came out. You had to get the vaccine. It was safe and effective. Well, then why do you care? And then all of a sudden the vaccine's not safe and effective. And then all of a sudden the vaccine doesn't work, et cetera, all this stuff. And now they're still forcing it. I mean, Biden, literally, the president of the United States said the other day that if you're 5 years old, you should be boosted. And if you're over 50, you should be double boosted. All while having COVID. This is not a joke, folks. But, that's just one part of what they have to say. Every single solitary thing they have to say is complete lunacy. And it doesn't have to be this way. I don't even understand why they want to live this way, other than we have to accept the fact that they're just not well people. So we're going to go through a bunch of things today. Again, welcome to GAMcast for, I guess it's July 29th. Hard to believe it is July 29th. It is a warm but somewhat cloudy day, sometimes sunny, sometimes cloudy. I'm guessing we're going to get one of those famous Georgia thunderstorms here in about the next hour. I hope not, because I'm hoping to finally get outside. I'm starting to feel a little bit better and actually do some physical exercise out there, but we shall see. I got a lot kind of to talk about, not really because it's a slow news day, but a lot of things I want to bring you up to speed with, including the continued assault on Christian nationalism, this time by going after Justice Alito. We're going to talk about a couple of bills that are percolating through Congress, a little bit of Pelosi, a little bit of Schumer, a bunch of other things if we can get to it. So if you are watching on one of the formats we're on live now, then you see Rob Reiner here. Now, this is a tweet he sent this morning at 11:20 a.m. It showed up in my feed. Don't know why, because I don't follow Rob Reiner, but, again, I told you, the for whatever reason, big tech feels like it wants to proselytize, and it wants to proselytize people like me, which I don't understand. The computer ought to know from my feed that, A, I'm pretty well aware and know what's going on in politics, and that, B, I'm not going to be influenced by people like Rob Reiner. But anyway, let's see what Rob Reiner has to say. Screw politics, screw po numbers. Joe Biden has a record of accomplishments in the first 2 years of his presidency that has gone unmatched for almost 60 years. So, folks, I want you to understand that, okay? He's not joking. He's not trying to be funny. He's dead serious. You hook him up to a lie detector test, he passes. He believes that. 60 years. Okay, let's do the math. 1962 would be my math, right? Is that right? Right? 62. 60 years gets you to 2022, okay? That's John Kennedy. Now, I don't know what the heck he's talking about, because John Kennedy didn't accomplish hardly anything in his 2 years. Biden really hadn't had 2 years yet, to be honest, but whatever. This is just insanity. Now, if you if you really want to go back, I mean, Johnson maybe, but anyway. So don't expect Rob Reiner to know his history or his politics. But folks, this is what they're ruining their own lives, and they're ruining our lives, because we're having to constantly, I say this all the time, I want to do this show and I want to talk about real issues and do real debates about real politics. We're going to get to Mark Elias and Pennsylvania voting and what's going on up there. And again, you would think it would be a real debate going on, but instead it's literal lunacy. Okay, when I get there, you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe, but it's just typical of how they do things. And they want this environment. They want the environment where mockery is politics, where lies are facts. And then guess what? Guess what you don't have? I say this all the time. The only way you're going to have a constitutional republic is if people are rational, people are educated, people are informed. Everything else, okay, if you don't have rational people, if you don't have informed people, right, you don't have that form of government. You have the same form of government you find everywhere else, which is a bunch of elites with a lot of wealth, right, and they tell you what to do, and you all live as serfs, and you have different levels of serfs. But that's basically what you are. Does this sound familiar to you? Do you look at the Democrat leaders, and they're all famous, and they're all wealthy, and they're all worshipped by the people that they quote-unquote serve, right? Does it look that way if you look at the people that serve people that believe in constitutional government? Huh? When was the last time you heard of George W. Bush? You ever heard? When was the last time he did anything or was in the news at all? How about Barack Obama? How about every flipping day, right? George W. Bush had a little bit of money, but, he has some money now. But Barack Obama was flat, busted, and broke. Now he's a multi-millionaire. Hillary Clinton, by her own admission, when they left the White House, were flat, busted, and broke. Now they're multi-millionaires. Folks, it's not a coincidence, okay? Not at all. Anyway, so moving on to monkeypox. This was also in my feed from the Post-Millennial. This is Dr. Tam. She's from Canada. She's talking about monkeypox. Now, the World Health Organization recently declared it a national world emergency, okay? There's been talk about declaring it emergency. A couple of cities, I believe San Francisco, New York, already have. Let's listen to a doctor discuss the facts.
This reporting week as compared to the previous week. In Canada, as of July the 26th, a total of 745 confirmed cases of monkeypox have been reported nationally, including 346 cases in Quebec, 326 in Ontario, 58 in British Columbia, 12 in Alberta, 2 in Saskatchewan, and 1 in the Yukon. Among cases for whom additional information is available, over 99% are male, and the median age was 36 years. In line with international trends, the majority of cases in Canada reported intimate sexual contact with other men.
Now, folks, I say all that to say this. I don't care about the gay, the non-gay. I don't care about any of that. I really don't. But, folks, how could you have a national or world emergency over something that is sexually transmitted? You can't. Now, this is the best they got. So this is just more in line with what we get. They want to declare an emergency. They look around. This is the best thing they got. It doesn't make any sense at all, and anybody with any common sense knows that, right? But then yet they come out with this. This is a group of people that don't believe in reality, and they no longer believe they even have to pretend that you are a person that has any common sense at all and can make any decisions for your own at all. And again, folks, the only way this works is an environment where their people believe it without question, right? And they can't be talked out of it. So once you start with it, right, and they never have to deal with anybody from the other side or deal with, complaints from the other side. And if you try to push back, you'll be silenced and persecuted. That only exists in this system. That is still the system we exist in. And you want to know why? Here's an article from the Washington Post. Senate Republicans block bill to help veterans exposed to burn pits. Now, why would that ever be a headline in a responsible news organization? I'll never know. Okay, but so I'm supposed to take away from that, and 60% won't even read it. So I'm supposed to take away from that for whatever reason. Republicans don't want to help veterans exposed to burn pits. Now, when I first heard that, the first thing that occurred to me was it was a gift to the trial lawyers who vote and donate 99.9% Democrat. That's what I thought. But anyway, Senate Republicans on Wednesday blocked a bill to help veterans exposed to toxic burn pits weeks after the measure initially sailed through the Senate with 84 votes, angering Democrats, veterans groups, and comedian Jon Stewart. Who gives a flip about Jon Stewart? Senator Jon Tester, Democrat Montana, chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, was particularly incensed by the turn of events. Tester, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, other lawmakers, and Stewart, again, Stewart's not in the Senate or the House, but whatever, on Thursday morning joined veterans outside the Capitol who originally came to Washington to see the bill passed to assail the GOP. It just makes the gut punch that more devastating, Stewart said, given the number of veterans who came to Washington hoping the bill would pass. Their constituents are dying. This is a disgrace. Now, let me stop here, folks, and let me just try to exercise and use some common sense. If you're a veteran, you're entitled to health care for the rest of your life. Why do we even need a bill for this? I mean, seriously, folks, I'm expecting the Washington Post, being journalists, is going to tell me that. But let's just say, for the sum of the argument, that there's some little glitch in the system that we need to pass a bill to get rid of the glitch, that they're not getting treatment for this. I mean, maybe that's what's going on. And now I'm to understand that they came to watch the bill pass, right? And that the GOP originally 84 voted for it, which means you have 50 plus 34 GOP, I'm assuming. So I'm assuming they're going to get to what's going on here. All right, so this is a disgrace. No. The bill would significantly change how the Department of Veterans Affairs cares for veterans who are exposed to toxin substances by compelling the VA to presume that certain illnesses are linked to exposure to hazardous waste incineration, mostly focused on the issue of burn pits from the recent wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. This would remove the burden of proof from the injured veterans. Okay, now I'm informed. I should have been up there earlier, but it sounds like you came in, you had something going on, and you wanted to tie it to a burn pit in Afghanistan, and they were saying, no, we're not going to tie it to a burn pit in Afghanistan. You were doing a burn pit in your backyard, doing a pig, and we think that's what it is, and so we're not going to give you this treatment. I'm just guessing, but that sounds rational to me. So we're moving the burden, so now the VA's got to prove it wasn't. Okay, whatever, sounds good. Guessing you would get some Republicans on board for that. Democrats accused Republicans of voting against the bill in retaliation for a deal announced earlier by Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer and Senator Joe Manchin that will allow Democrats to move ahead on an economic, health care, and climate package without Republican votes. Republicans say it's not true. They point instead to a budgetary policy dispute between the two parties. Wow, okay, well, the journalism here is outstanding so far. Actually not, but let's move on. The tester shared his frustration and confusion with Republican lawmakers who supported the bill a few weeks ago but changed their position and voted against moving forward Wednesday. I wonder why they keep coming back to this emotional stuff. Why not get to the meat, to the facts? But okay, I've been in the business for 25 years in the state legislature and here, and I've never seen anything that's happened like what's happened yesterday. And what compounds it and makes it much more difficult is we have, in essence, yesterday took benefits away from the people who have been impacted by a war that we set off. Okay, as we turn our backs and say we're going to find an excuse to vote against our veterans, we wave the flag talking about how great our fighting men and women are. Okay, so this is a person, Tester, and again, he just won re-election up there in a state that a Democrat should have no chance. But he pretends to be somewhat moderate and gets away with being moderate, and then his voting record is 99.9% with all this garbage the Democrats are doing. Pelosi said Republicans' actions are particularly unusual given that helping veterans usually attracts significant bipartisan support. I wonder what could be going on. I'm very sad that 80% of Republicans in the United States Senate said no to veterans yesterday. 80%, 40 votes, no. Okay, more emotional, the veterans have waited too long overdue, Pelosi. Okay, more of this, okay? So we come down here. A version of the legislation was approved by the Senate by a vote of 84-14 in June. It was back in the Senate on Wednesday because the House made modest changes before passing the bill. Modest changes on a 342 to 88 vote about 2 weeks ago. More about Twitter. Tester, angry, blah, 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 more. Again, I'm now way down. All right, I'm almost 2/3 of the way through the article. Wednesday's failed vote was rooted in a budgetary policy dispute that was first raised last month by Senator Patrick Toomey, who objected to the way the bill would change the accounting of about $400 billion in pre-existing veteran spending. Now, I'm particularly inclined to believe Toomey here because he's not running for re-election. He's done. He got no bone to pick anywhere, right? If anything, he's the person I would believe most because he's just looking for principle here. He doesn't have a dog in this fight. That previously authorized spending had been designated as discretionary. That is subject to yearly congressional appropriations. But the bill, known as the PAC Act, authorizes $280 billion of new mandatory spending. That is not subject to yearly appropriations, and also converts the $400 billion in authorizations from discretionary to mandatory. That, Toomey argued first last month, amounts to a budget gimmick that could facilitate massive amounts of new appropriated spending. Why would they do a thing like that? He said on the June 24th floor speech, the reason is because that way you get to create a big gaping hole in the discretionary spending category, which will be filled with another $400 billion of a totally unrelated spending, who knows on what. right? So basically what's holding this up, folks, has nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans. It has nothing to do with veterans. What happens here basically is what they tried to do is make this one-time change. Instead of it being discretionary, this year we're going to make the change, we're going to do this. They tried to make $400 billion mandatory going forward. $400 billion going forward every year. Think about that. Now, again, this is a typical trick that the Democrats pull. And you'll notice in the Washington Post, they spent 2/3 of the article making you think Republicans hate veterans and that they're just mean-spirited and they're just reacting to a bill we'll get to in a minute where Manchin is now caved on Build Back. It's Build Back Better, folks. You can rebrand it all you want. It's still Build Back Better, right? And you only have to get to the bottom there, which nobody, I mean, I guarantee the only people that read to the bottom are us, right? And then you see the crux of an issue. Now, how do we get to this point, folks? That ought to be front and center. Republicans object to Democrat, appropriation from discretionary to mandatory. Republicans object to $400 billion in new spending in perpetuity. Or maybe you don't want to say it that way. Say, changes in spending. And you get Jon Stewart out there. Do you think he even has any idea what's going on? Folks, you can't have a country like this. This is a banana republic type of stuff. We get up there and they just scream platitudes and scream at Republicans and how can you be against veterans, right? And you don't even have any idea what it was. I mean, I thought my trial lawyer guess would have been, and trust me, they're in there and somewhere in this woodpile. But anyway, let's move on. So here's Eric Swalwell showing you another example. Now, folks, again, we have entered serious banana republic 1984 territory. This country's a joke when he can go in front of the House on TV and say this out loud, okay? And, folks, if you think this is going to be rooted out because Republicans take the House in November, if they do, or the Senate, which increasingly looks like they will not, you have no idea what you're talking about. We're done. Until you fix the communication infrastructure where people go, okay, Swalwell, this doesn't make any sense because, right? It shouldn't make any sense the minute it leaves his mouth. Here's Swalwell recently talking about, again, the Republicans. Come on, don't do this. I hate when it does that. You should be ready to go.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, my Republican colleagues have said over and over that school board violence is, quote, fairly rare. A Reuters story on February 15, 2022 begins with, the letter came to the home of Brenda Sheridan, a Loudoun County, Virginia school board member, addressed to one of her adult children. It threatened to kill them both unless she left the board. It's too bad that your mother is an ugly communist whore, said the hand-scrawled note, which the family read just after Christmas. If she doesn't quit or resign before the end of the year, we will kill her, but first, we will kill you. The story goes on to document over 220 examples of such violent intimidation, and I'd like to enter that under unanimous consent into the record.
Without objection.
Now, Mr. Olson, what concerns me is that you're being questioned by a lot who has become more comfortable with violence than voting, that has associated itself more with chaos than community. But do you agree that what I just described to you is something...
Now, they prefer violence to voting and chaos to community. Now, see, he thinks this crap is funny. And before I don't care what this person says, they're talking about Loudoun County, Virginia. Loudoun County, Virginia, a Democrat stronghold. So let me riddle me this, Batman. Name a Democrat jurisdiction anywhere on God's green earth 25 years ago that wouldn't have laughed at Swalwell trying to take power from them. Now they happily cede power to Washington. Riddle me this. What in the world does the federal government have to do, anything have to do with a local police matter? I'm assuming the Loudoun County, whatever sheriff, whatever police department, that most places that are Democrat have both for whatever reason. I'm sitting in one of them right now. I don't know why we got to have 5 different police departments, but we do. All right. Why can't they handle it? But anyway, let's see what the answer is. Oh, come on. I don't know why it does this. It's just ridiculous. Some things they don't want you clipping them.
Mr. Olson,
all right, let me see if I can get to it.
Doesn't quit or resign before the end of the year, we will kill her, but first...
All right, well, anyway, it got screwed up. Sorry about that. Normally those videos don't do that, but somehow it's live from Swalwell's feed, so it messes it up. Anyway, the point I wanted to make, you got already, is that this is a local police matter. He's purely trying to transfer power to Washington. You would think that Loudoun County, being already Democrat, doesn't need that kind of power, and that's the thing you really got to understand. In other words, it's bad enough that he's trying to take power from a Democrat community, and he's trying to federalize something that, folks, at the founding, if you'd have said this kind of thing, literally, I mean, it would have been, they would have literally put you in a straitjacket. The idea that police power ought to be transferred, I mean, the one power that was, I mean, among, but one of the most locally held guarded powers was the police power. That's the one we want to keep as local as humanly possible. I don't want some bureaucrat thousands of miles away deciding whether or not I go to jail or whether I'm investigated. I want people close to me in my community. I want to be found guilty or not guilty by those people in my community, right? This is just, near and dear to Americans' hearts. And here you have Swalwell, again, coming up with they prefer chaos to community. They prefer violence to voting. It's not funny. Nobody prefers that. Nobody. And yet he gets he not only thinks it, he writes it down, he says it, and then, folks, he tweeted this, okay? He tweeted this out. It was in my feed because I think I follow him. But anyway, all right, so moving on, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 will be the largest package on climate change ever passed by Congress, period. Folks, anytime you see somebody support whatever they say, period, that's a moron, okay? And it's not somebody who's interested in having a debate. But again, folks, it's just, wait a minute. Why is it called the Inflation Reduction Act if it's a climate change bill? That's already a problem. How are you going to reduce inflation by spending? You're not. So again, I've said this before, but Nancy has probably done more to ruin Congress than any person in American history. And again, it all started with the same old thing. You got to vote for her because she's a woman. Well, I mean, I don't know that, but yeah, I mean, it's time for a woman. Let's go ahead and do a woman. And then, okay, fine. And you get this. This is where it starts. This is where it leads. And now you got Schumer, who, 10, 15 years ago was not insane. I mean, he wasn't, folks. I mean, he was definitely left, and he was definitely a New Dealer, and he definitely thought the federal government had the answers. But he wouldn't engage in this kind of crap. He learns this from the system. Anyway, here's a couple things that are in the act. All right, the act appropriates $45.6 billion, right, for necessary expenses for the IRS to determine and collect taxes, provide legal litigation support, blah, 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 blah. The act provides $25.3 for necessary expenses relating to supporting IRS. The act appropriates $4.75 billion for necessary expenses, blah, 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 blah. A lot of stuff to the IRS there. Forgetting about what's going to go on with the Green New Deal and all this stuff. Forgetting about the fact that it's about $1 trillion when we're already in an inflationary spiral, right? Folks, these people, they're screwing up and they're picking up speed. This is not a good idea. I don't know what they promised Manchin to do this. No word on whether the provision in there that they be able to monitor your bank account by pressing a button. No word on that yet. We shall see. It'll probably be in there. I'll be shocked if it won't. But again, nobody will look. Nobody will do any journalism. Nobody will raise the alarm. Nobody will care. This will pass in all likelihood. Still no word on whether Sinema supports it, or maybe, hopefully, people actually start to read this crap. But things are not going well, folks. All right. Much like Senator Cruz before him, Senator Hawley is finding out what it's like to see your political dreams go up in flames after becoming a laughingstock. MSNBC has been running this round the clock since the January 6th committee came out with this. And basically the crux of the story is that Hawley was walking in on January 6th to the certification where he knew there was going to be objections. He knew there was going to be challenges to Biden's certification of the Electoral Count Act of 1887. We were going to have days and days and days of discussion about what happened in the 2020 election. Was it appropriate? It was not. A lot of people like Hawley and Senator Cruz were like, hey, we're not trying to overturn the election. We understand that on the 20th, Biden will put his hand on the Bible. He will be the 45th president, or 46th president, of the United States of America. We understand that, but we want to raise issues about this election. It's looking increasingly like a false flag operation caused a disturbance in the force. The disturbance then led to 4 hours of, delay in the certification, the election scheme challenge all went away, and then we got a year and a half of the January 6th committee abusing the Constitution and Americans' rights. Then this is one more thing that they've gotten out of the committee, right? So they showed a picture of him doing a power salute, walking in, trying to embolden the people who were there to challenge what was going on. Then when the Capitol was invaded, they showed a photo of him. This was the last hearing that I covered. Again, if you want to go check it out, put Great American Mail and YouTube into Google. I should come up as the first hit now. But and we've got all the live streams on there. This was the 8th one of him jogging out. And the story, I kid you not, in all of left-wing media was Senator Hawley runs like a little bitch. I kid you not. I'm not joking. I don't do this on this show, so I didn't cover it. I thought it was bizarre. I don't understand how you can say something so sexist. That was the problem I had. The mockery, and that they constantly 90% of the quote-unquote debate or points that the left wing makes about anything is mocking the GOP. I mean, go look at anybody. Rachel Maddow, Brian Tyler Cohn, MSNBC. It's all 90+% mockery, and then the remaining is about 10% lies. They never deal with actual data or facts, right? Now, the reason I bring all this up, and this is why it became part of something I do on this show, because they're comparing it to Senator Cruz and now Hawley. And Rush Limbaugh was great about this, and he was great about catching this. And I'm nowhere near Rush Limbaugh, but I'm learning about this. They do this all the time. They show you who they fear. The reason they're trying to go after Hawley, the reason the January 6th threw that bit in there was to start this campaign against him. Just like Senator Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley is becoming somebody who's effective. He knows what he's doing. He's now got a few years behind him in the Senate. He knows what's going on. He's effective. He's smart. So they got to attack him. They got to mock him. And folks, the reason they do that is it works. But just whenever you hear Hawley and this type of thing, know that's what it's all about. It has no substance to it. Okay, he's not a laughingstock because they said it. They just decided to turn their guns on him. That's all that is. This is Nancy Pelosi. And again, folks, this is the Speaker of the House. I want you to close your eyes and imagine for a moment. What if you were the Speaker of the House of the United States of America? Imagine the types of things you would do on a daily basis. All right? Would you propose bills for this or for that? Would you try to improve the comedy of people? By that I mean COMITI, getting along, right? Working together, that type of thing. Or would you do this? This is what Nancy Pelosi chooses to do. I don't know why my system's been doing this for a couple days. Come on. Shouldn't do that.
Court, they are waging, the Republicans in Congress are waging a dark crusade of punishment and control. They don't believe in birth control, but they do want to control the lives of women in our country. Here in Congress, House Republicans
don't believe in birth control. Now, I didn't do this. I could have. I thought about it, but, I could go find out how many legislatures are controlled by Republicans, and I could see how many of them have outlawed birth control. I'm not going to bother because it's zero. Oh, come on. I don't know why. I don't understand why it's doing this, folks. Sorry, really don't. It should not be doing this. I guess I shouldn't interrupt.
Court, they are waging of punishment and control. They don't believe in birth control, but they do want to control the lives of women in our country. Here in Congress, House Republicans are calling for a national abortion ban, voting almost unanimously against a woman's right to choose.
All right. That's not an abortion ban, folks. Congress doesn't have the authority to do it.
To contraception.
Okay, challenging contraception.
As I said to them on the floor, do you know what's going on in your own families, in your own homes? In state capitals, Republicans are already tearing away reproductive freedoms and targeting the right to cross state lines. And the Republicans voted against preventing that from happening.
Anyway, I don't know why it's doing that. For some, it usually doesn't do that, but my computer's been acting up lately. I need to reboot it. Anyway, so that's Pelosi. Again, folks, think about what's going on in the country right now. You got inflation that's out of control. You got a southern border that just literally droves of people. We're doing no examination of disease, terrorism, violent tendencies, nothing. They're just streaming over, right? A stream of these people. And she has a few moments to do something, and what does she do? She takes to the floor to attack Republicans over complete imaginary things. This is not a joke, folks. And the media, like a pack of seals, just sits there and goes right along with it. All right, so we are way ahead of schedule today, which I love. Anyway, all right, so a couple more things. So this came up on my feed. I follow Mark Elias, who is a Democrat lawyer that spends most of his time trying to rig elections for Democrats. And I saw this one the other day in my feed. Again, he has two feeds. He has his own feed, Mark Elias, and then he has this feed, which is the Democracy Docket, which is basically tracking all of the litigation he's engaged in throughout the country to basically subvert our elections so that Democrats can rig them. I mean, I'm not joking. That's basically what he does, okay? But this one I thought, anyway, it says, let me read it, and then I'll tell you what happened. So starting soon, court hearing regarding the refusal to count valid, undated mail-in ballots in primary races in 3 Pennsylvania counties. Streaming the hearing here, click here. So I clicked there. I watched about 2 hours while I was doing other stuff, but in the background I had it, and I listened to 2 hours of this hearing. So I can tell you now what was going on. Now I want you to understand this, folks. This pre-COVID, there was no mail-in voting in Pennsylvania. None. Zip, zilch. Nada. Okay? None. The Democrat governor overrode the legislature and said there will be mail-in voting. So they sent mail-in ballots to everyone. Now, eventually, they came up with a way in which people could mail in ballots, which was called, Jim Crow 2.0. Oh, my God, this is racist. This is racist that you have this scheme, right? And the scheme, whatever it was, you had to sign it, date it, put it in an envelope, a bunch of stuff. Clearly, you have to date the ballot, okay? And I want you to understand what's going on. So once that, or actually, I stand corrected. This may be a continuation of an old system. It may never have passed the legislature. It doesn't really matter for the point of this story, folks. Turns out, during the primary, we're talking now a couple weeks or a month ago, all right, even though the scheme that they came up with clearly provides on the mail-in balloting that you have to date the ballot, various people who got the benefit of being able to, quote-unquote, vote via mail failed to date the ballot. So people in various counties, I forget which three, it doesn't matter, decided, I'm not counting that vote. Now, the courts, when this issue got brought up before about, hey, first and foremost, we're doing mail-in balloting. The legislature hasn't passed it. We're going to do it. All right. And the courts basically decide that's okay, even though the executive did it, right? Then the courts say, well, yeah, I know it provides for a date, but if you didn't date it, that's neither here nor there. It should still count it, right? Overriding local election officials, okay? And now these local election officials are fighting back, saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Now, Elias calls this, in another tweet that I saw because I follow him, he called this a constitutional crisis. Folks, this is the independent state legislature doctrine, and there's a case going on right now, North Carolina versus Moore versus North Carolina. I'm not sure which side of the V they're on. It doesn't matter. The Supreme Court's going to hear it next year. And this is what's going on, that Mark Elias created all this, right? He goes around, he rigs it so that the executive in a red state, in this case the governor, or maybe the courts, it doesn't matter, he just gets whichever Democrat that lacks compunction, doesn't care about the Constitution or the rules, and says, we're going to have mail-in balloting. Then he goes and he says, by the way, all these strictures that you have to make sure it's safe and proper, wipe those away. Count every ballot. Count every single solitary ballot. That's basically, if you don't believe in counting every single solitary ballot, you don't believe in same-day registration and being able to vote on your phone, Elias calls you Jim Crow. And I'm not kidding. That's exactly what he believes. Now, you know that's going to be rife with cheating. Anyway, what's going on here is what few safeguards they have, if they're not observed, he's somehow gotten the courts or the executive to say you got to count them anyway. And that's why the Supreme Court has taken this case up to say, no. We're going back to the independent state legislature doctrine. The Constitution provides, unless it's overridden by the feds, which it has not been, right? Legislatures create the way in which we vote. Now, that's always understood until now to mean subject to, going through and following what the courts say, right? The problem is people like Elias have gotten the courts to rig the system. So they're basically overriding the legislature and are now writing election law at the executive or Supreme Court or lower court. And that's not what's supposed to go on here. And Pennsylvania is a good example. So anyway, I just want you to understand when these people talk about voting rights and Jim Crow, that's what they mean now. They no longer mean the type of thing where if you were black, they would somehow make it harder for you to vote. What they mean now is any restriction on voting so that they can't rig it the way they want. That's what they have the problem with. So I'll finish with this, and I'm going to be well ahead of schedule, which I'm glad to be. So a lot of people are picking on Alito, and this is all part of something new. Folks, you got to see this stuff when it starts. This started about 4, 5, 6 months ago. They started going after Christianity. And I don't know why you want to go on after Christianity, all right? I really don't. And then it became Christian nationalism. We heard that from Rachel Maddow the last couple of days. So just be on the lookout for that. Christianity ain't doing no harm in this country that I know of, right? And I'm not a religious person. I got no dog in this fight one way or the other, right? I mean, I don't have a problem with religion. Go do your thing. Just I don't want you knocking at my door trying to get me to go to church. Other than that, do whatever you want to do. I don't have a problem with them, right? But the left does. And the reason is because they tend to vote in a way that they don't like, and they tend to support the family in an orderly, rational way of doing things. That's why they don't like it. So now they're trying to come up with all these different names for what's going on. But I want you to understand that that Christianity has been under attack for a long time. It's just now that they're coming out and it's a dirty word. But they've been trying to get they say it's a separation of church and state. What they really mean is separation of church from the state, and that's never what the founders intended at all. What they intended was we're not going to have a state religion, but one religion can't be treated beneath the other. Not to the left. Anyway, this is another point that Samuel Alito is making out there, and it's a very good one, and I'll leave you with this. Here's Samuel Alito speaking in Rome, Italy yesterday.
Around us, the hotel in which my wife and I are staying looks out over the Roman Forum, and as a result, I find myself thinking about the proud civilization that was centered here 2 millennia ago. And as I think back, I also think ahead, and I wonder what historians may say centuries from now about the contribution of the United States to world civilization. One thing I hope they will say is that our country, after a lot of fits and starts and ups and downs, eventually showed the world that it is possible to have a stable and successful society in which people of diverse faiths live and work together harmoniously and productively while still retaining their own beliefs.
Anyway, when you hear this stuff about Christian nationalism and attacks on Christianity and the like, remember that, because that's Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, and he's exactly right. We're not supposed to discriminate against any religion. And the left's all fine when you're talking about Muslims and other faiths like that. But when it comes to Christianity now, that they're increasingly on the attack, and it's nothing more than the typical thing of it's basically an attack on the Constitution and America and what we believe in by a different name. Anyway, you are now all caught up to date on the news of the day, and if you enjoyed this live stream, I hope you tune back in tomorrow.